much for making it for our session today as well. Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning and good day to all of you here today.
Yes.
So today is going to be a very special topic. But before we get into that, a little bit housekeeping guidelines, I would say. First things first, if you have any sort of technical difficulties in terms of hearing, in terms of audio, feel free to either check your settings, refresh your browser, or at Naluri events for support on the chat. So yes, I can see people. Hi,
Hello,
welcome,
everyone. Welcome.
Thank you for the support. And yes, that's also another point. We want to keep this session interactive and fun and collaborative. So feel free to continuously chat in the chat. Give your questions, give your feedback, give your thoughts and opinions. We love that, and we want to keep this session engaging and fun for everyone and knowledgeable as well.
Of course. And I can't wait to get this kicking.
Yes.
Diana. Yes.
Okay. So with that being said, welcome. So today's our session is called Level Up, Manage Up.
Right.
In conjunction, yes, in conjunction to World Mental Health Day. So yes, happy World Mental Health Day to you.
Likewise.
Thank
Diana.
you.
And do you know, fun fact, Diana, today is actually the official date for the National
World Mental Health Day.
Yes, World Mental Health Day.
Right. Before that, I want to introduce ourselves as well. Hi, my name is Diana. So I am a mental health coach and clinical psychologist here in Naluri.
Fantastic.
So I've been here in Naluri for about close to 3 years already. And the kind of work that I do essentially is regarding mental health concerns, providing talks and webinars and trainings to build resilience, to become a mental health advocate. And previously, before that, I worked mainly in what do you call that, like NGOs, and also in a clinical setting in hospitals. So that's kind of how my experience has ranged from like clinical setting to NGO setting, now to workplace setting. Yes. And what about yourself?
Fantastic. And I think in our line of work, Diana, I believe that both us as the career coach as well as you as the mental health coach will work together very closely. So as an introduction, I am Fazilah, and I am one of the executive coaches that we have here in Naluri. Over here, we have about 4 coaches that you can reach out to. And my role is addressing the challenges as well as the issues that people or employees face in the workplace.
Nice.
Yes. And today's session, I would think, Diana, would help to look at some of the elements that can help both in the aspect of the career as well as how do they then manage mental health.
Yeah.
So in my space, I was formerly in the corporate setting. I was in human resources, and this transition happened about 4 years ago. And that was how long I've been here in Naluri supporting. Yes.
Well,
Diana.
awesome. Great to hear that, because I believe your experience is really, really valuable, and I also feel like it's relevant for our theme this year for World Mental Health Day and World Mental Health Month, which is actually mental health in the workplace. So yes, with that being said, let's get right into it. Our topic for today is level up and manage up. So from your perspective as an executive coach, what does leveling up or managing up means?
Good. Thank you, Diana, for that question. I would think that in terms of the leveling up, and sometimes people have this myth to say that leveling up means that you are manipulating certain relationships. But on the contrary, leveling up has got a very important ecosystem in the relationship that you have with your superiors, be it your bosses, be it your stakeholders. And we will unravel this, Diana, as we go along in the course of our conversation today, as to the how-tos, what are the benefits, and many more as we
Mm.
go into this our webinar that we have.
Nice. Thank you for that. Okay, I hear that it's not manipulating, but
Mm-hmm.
more of collaboration, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, right, who do you think who do you think this session is for? Like managing up. Who
Mm-hmm.
are we trying to spread this message to?
Mm. Well, basically, everybody that has someone above them. So
Mm.
they would need to collaborate, that's what you said, with the people who are above them, superiors, right? But also, I do have something in store later today, as in how do you then manage the managers.
Right.
Now, there are also tips for the managers in how do you then manage the subordinates, and it is a collaboration as what you said, Diana. So therefore there will need to be the relationship between the subordinate as well as the managers. So it must be living in an ecosystem which has got that symbiosis relationship.
Right.
Mhm.
Symbiosis relationship,
Yes,
meaning that it works together and it
correct.
complements each other.
That's right.
As you said that, it kind of reminds me as, an employee or
Mm-hmm.
someone who is in a lower ranking or
Mm-hmm.
an executive or even a worker, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we can feel a little bit helpless
Mm-hmm.
in the sense of what, or kind of depending or putting our hope and faith in managers to do something for us or to,
Mm-hmm.
to promote us or to give us what we want, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever that may be. But what I'm hearing from you is a lot about taking a sense of control,
That's
even in
right.
a helpless or not helpless situation, but in a position that can be viewed as not having much authority or power, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or which is feeling empowered to do something. And
That's right. That's right.
okay,
That's
that's
right.
awesome.
So the word that you mentioned just now, empowering. So we need to make sure that as the subordinate, we take charge of that situation.
Mm,
We are in control
yeah.
of some of the activities that we do in order how do we manage up.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
awesome. With that being said, since we talked a little bit about what understanding what managing up
Mm-hmm.
is, I want to know why is this important? Like, why
Mm-hmm.
should we care or even think about managing up
Mm-hmm.
from your perspective?
Mm. That's right. So, from the employee's perspective, in order to be able to have a career which is effective, have a career which is meaningful and
Mm,
purposeful. So, it's very important for you to be able to manage this relationship. So, as you know, and this is reality,
mm-mm.
Diana, as you know, we have our supervisors to look up to in order for us to progress. Definitely, as far as performance is concerned, that is up to us to make sure that we have that in place. However, when we have the support of our managers, of our supervisors, we will then have that opportunity to get their buy-in, to be visible to where they are at. So they will then have the lens as to how they can promote you,
Wow,
how they can bring you forward, how they can develop you.
understand.
So with the opportunity or with the knowledge of how do you manage your supervisors, then all this will come in place for
Wow,
the supervisors.
I see. So it's kind of like helping your managers to help you
Mm-hmm.
or helping your supervisors to help you
That's
to
right.
either to achieve whatever goals you might have, right? To
Correct.
either climb up the ladder or to get promoted or to get more career advancement because it makes sense, right? Your managers can't read your minds
Mm-hmm.
and they can't really they can't have an hawk eye view on everything you do all the time.
That's right.
So part of it is having that that communication and that collaborative mindset or
Mm-hmm.
perspective or approach to essentially work with your managers for you, right?
Correct.
So okay, that's awesome.
Correct. So I wanted to circle back to what we said about collaboration just now, right? And we also mentioned about how do we make sure that there is this symbiosis relationship. So for the employees, it would be for them to be able to be visible, for them to be able to get the buy-in from the supervisors. Now, from the supervisor's perspective, the benefits of this is that you will then be able to have a team with you who are with together with you, right? And in that way, you will then be able to get your work done better
True.
because the relationship is there.
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to allude towards in regards to collaboration between both the managers as well as the subordinates. Well, you can't there's no sound if you were to clap your hand, just one side of your hand, right? So it must be a collaboration between the managers as well as the subordinates.
Awesome. I really like how you highlighted how it can benefit also the manager and the supervisor, because exactly, imagine you joining a team, fresh, completely new, especially when you're jumping from a high rank to another high rank. How do you then be able to maintain maybe a level of seniority and also a level of influence, positive influence, to get people to work with you and get people on board with your ideas and achieve a cohesive goal together, right?
That's
So having that, it's really awesome that in this sense, managing upwards does bring both parties together.
together.
Yeah,
Yes.
so that's awesome.
Mm.
That's great. Okay, with that being said, we talk a little bit about how we've talked about what it is and how it's critical and how it can actually benefit both the employees and the managers and supervisors. What are some things? Let's talk about. Let's change the gears a little bit and talk about how can we achieve that. What are some of the strategies that you think is beneficial or important for us to be able to achieve this? Right? Yes.
Yeah. So one of the strategy that I believe would be important is to make sure that you understand your managers. This is from the perspective of the subordinate towards a manager. And Jenna, have you heard about the framework in which how people receive information best? This is the acronym of VARK, VARK,
Okay.
in the context that some people receives information most by visual, right? So VARK would be the acronym for visual, auditory, R is for reading or writing, and K is for kinesthetic.
Oh.
Right? So understanding your supervisors in this way is, if let's say, for example, I'll give you an example, Diana. If I were to want to approach you with a task that I was asked to do, and I know that as a supervisor, you are a person who is very visual, right? You are the person that would need to have something in front that you can look at in order for you to be able to understand me better, right?
Understand.
So therefore, when I present to you, when I suggest or when I propose my work to you, perhaps I would then do it in a PowerPoint.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So that you will then be able to see that PowerPoint and you will then be able to follow conversation because you see what it is.
Understand?
Right? Now, there are certain people who are more the acronym of R, which is read or write. There are supervisors who would be gravitating towards more things that they can read. Right? So maybe if the same example just now, if I were to go to you and I know that you are a supervisor who loves or who would rather read documents, then I will then give you the task or give you the work first. Allow you to have a read first before then I come to you and have that one-on-one.
Awesome. I get it.
So it's about knowing your supervisors and how do they or how are they receptive towards things that you would want to speak to them about.
Nice.
Right now, the other one, Diana,
Okay.
and when we spoke about this, right, it's about sponsor.
Yeah. There, we had a conversation, BTS, behind the scenes, about
Right.
this.
So it's a sponsor, and I would like to urge the listeners here about this concept of a sponsor.
Yes.
And I will get the team to put up the link here on the chat. And this link is a TED talk that was done by this lady called Carla Harris. She's a TED talk speaker, and she speaks about this concept of a sponsor. Right now, Diana, what when you hear the word sponsor,
Mm-mm.
what comes to your mind?
Okay. To me, at first, it would come to my mind as someone sponsoring me financially. But in this context, in the workplace, a sponsor is someone who is willing to invest in your career development,
Mhm.
especially in the context of someone um, someone who is willing to advocate for you is one thing,
That's right.
but also to spend some, I would say, like social currency, right,
Correct.
in speaking about you behind closed doors, or especially in the round table of where decisions are being made about leveling up or promotions, or even promotions and so forth. So it's having someone who has authority, who has power, and who has a seat in the table,
That's right.
who can actually make decisions, or at least influence the decisions, and is on your side, or at least is able to see the things you've done, the work that you've done, the things you have contributed, what your goals are, how it actually, where you want to go moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, that's what I understand what a sponsor is. Yeah, and it's a concept that honestly I've understood, but never really put into words about
Mm.
it, because I don't think we talk about that much. Or having a sponsor, it's more of like, oh, having a coach, or
Mm-hmm.
having a mentor,
Mm-hmm.
or having a supervisor, or having a leader or a boss, right? These are all the terms we always hear when it comes to someone in a high rank, or someone above you, someone able to guide you, um, someone able to give you feedback, constructive criticism, and so forth. But the concept of sponsor, I
Mm-hmm.
don't think that's being talked about that much, and also not really being said as much, right? So
Mm.
with that, yeah, that's what I understood what sponsor means.
Mm.
Is
100% correct. Yeah. So and then I had this chat with Diana, BTS, as what you said. The fact that if you were to be able to find this sponsor, and this sponsor may not necessarily be your supervisor, it could
Sure.
be somebody who, as Diana mentioned just now, somebody who has a seat at the table. Now, if you were to find this person, you need to identify the person, and you need to approach this person, and therefore you are able to actually create this social currency, as what you said, with this person. So therefore, when there are times when it matters, times when conversations around promotion, conversations around assignments come up, this sponsor will be able to support you, will be able to speak on your behalf, because you may not have a seat at the table,
Yeah.
but this person does.
Yeah.
So this person will then be able to help you, support you, and also bring your voice to the place where it matters. So have a chat, or have a look at the
Okay.
link, and have a view of the TED Talk, and you will learn a lot more about what is a sponsor, as well as how do you find a sponsor.
Right. Awesome. As we talk as we talk so much about leveling up and managing up, and finding a sponsor, it's really making me think, or having a different perspective
Mm-hmm.
about being a worker, right?
Right.
Like, or working in general. Like, it's more than just work.
Mm,
I would say there's a lot
definitely.
of interpersonal or relationship or relational skills that are actually part of the job, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, or not part of the job, but more of like, it's worth to invest in, it's worth to care about. For example, your relations with your team members, or your
Mm-hmm.
relations with your managers, your superiors. That it's not just like me going to the office, do my job and go home,
Mm-hmm.
but oh, actually investing some time to have one-on-ones with my managers, or
Right.
with my sponsor that I can identify, or even with my team members. Because these relations, it's really, sounds to me, it's really important,
Yes.
um, to not only have to able to achieve the goals within the business or the company or the organization, but also to have your own career advancement as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this whole concept of relational currency is so crucial. And yeah, it's something that I've only recently kind of opened my eyes to
Mm-hmm.
really like put it into words. Like, I don't know, a lot of times in Malaysia we say, oh, it's very political, or it's very you have to suck up or do and these things and
Mm.
like that, right? There's a very
Exactly.
negative connotation about when you
Correct.
see people, for example, investing in these relationships,
That's
right?
right.
But it actually matters more than we think. And
Exactly.
yeah, so there's a lot of shame with that. But I do think it might come from a place of not really understanding how it really impacts.
Mm.
And
Yeah, and to that note, and I think the first few minutes as what we started just now, we spoke about empowering,
yeah,
right? And you mentioned about it is a connotation sometimes when we say that why do people would want to, for the lack of a better word, to to get close to their supervisors. Is there something which is behind that intention, right? But if you were to be able to empower yourself
mm,
to take the wheel in this relationship, and you do this with the intention for the betterment of yourself,
yeah,
right? That is for your own career. Now, how you do it would be differing between how managers are. There are certain managers who would want the constant one-on-ones, or the some managers would rather you come once you have everything in place, and then you come to them with that proposition or that proposal, right? But regardless of how you do it, empower yourself to do that, right?
awesome, yeah.
Because it is important in order for you to progress in your career, Diana.
Nice. Okay. I feel empowered. Really. I really feel empowered too. So yeah, it brings you out of that mindset of, oh, my, I have no control over this, I have no
Correct.
control over my promotion. I can hope that my manager sees me, and actually that's one of the things I notice with common with burnout,
Mm,
with especially the workplace. It's this idea, or is this a direction of putting so much effort
mm-hmm.
and working so hard, and like, it comes to even sacrificing their needs sometimes,
Right.
their boundaries, in order to be recognized, in hopes of being recognized,
Mm,
in hopes to be visible, that this is the way to do it. If I over push myself, and but not investing so much in my social currency,
mm-hmm.
and they might not get, because they're not also communicating, in some occasions, right? We're not necessarily communicating our expectations or
Right.
our
Right.
desires in that sense. So
Correct.
then it gets very then you get disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
And then, especially when you put so much effort into it, it can
Mm,
be so disappointing and heartbreaking, that you might sometimes give up, or you get burnt out, and
mm,
then you question, what's my purpose in this organization, what am I doing? And you might go into a different job, for example, and you might feel refreshed because it's
mm,
new,
mm-hmm.
but the pattern can repeat itself,
Correct.
because
Yes.
that perspective, or that, yeah, the perspective, and the approach, it's the same, right?
Correct.
We're not really challenging and feeling weak. I'm in this situation. What am I doing? And how am I empowering myself? And do I have a sense? Am I empowering myself enough to gain a certain level of control
Correct.
within whatever capacity and position that I'm in, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I wanted to just pick your thoughts around the mental space, mental health space, right? Because here we talk a lot about the connection between mental well-being and productivity of the people, right? Now, you spoke about how do we empower ourselves to make sure that we drive this. Now, on the other hand, Diana, if this were to not have been done,
Mm,
if the conversation or if the relationship between the supervisor and subordinate is not as cordial as it should be,
yeah.
right? Now, in your thoughts as a specialist in this mental health space, how would that have an impact towards the employee themselves in terms of their mental well-being? What do you think?
Great question. Thank
Right.
you for that. And I think it's so important to highlight that because it
Mm-hmm.
impacts greatly.
Sure.
Whether we want to admit it or not, we
Mm-hmm.
do care about what our managers and our superiors think.
That's
And we
right.
do want that validation, that sense of appreciation, that sense of like, good job, for doing that. Like to make them, whether we want to embrace that or not, it is a sense of a feeling of a way to feel validated and a
Mm-hmm.
way to feel a sense of fulfillment.
That's right.
So however, I understand that it's not attainable every
Mm-hmm.
single time because of different managers, different superiors in the way they express gratitude, in the way they express their own emotions, right? So with that being said, part of it is also to manage your own expectations
Mm-hmm.
within how you actually within how you expect your manager to or your superior to respond to you. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it can definitely greatly affect, especially when you put your whole sense of, I would say, um, sense of identity or sense of um, validation into just your boss's
Mm-hmm.
response. Like, oh, I only feel good about myself
Mm-hmm.
if my boss says great job.
Mm-hmm.
But if, for example, my team member says great job,
Mm-hmm.
or another boss says great job, oh, it doesn't matter to me. I dismiss that, and that's not sustainable, and that's also not helpful because that's a perspective that's quite rigid,
Mm-hmm.
and it can also be not sustainable, like I said, because you're constantly depending on an external voice
Mm-hmm.
to tell you that you're doing a good job. But how about your inner voice?
Mm-hmm.
Do you recognize you're doing a great job? Do you see your sense of worth and value
Right.
in the company? And although I have to highlight, yes, having a superior who is supportive,
Mm-hmm.
who is motivating, who is recognizing and championing you, yes, it's incredibly important and incredibly helpful.
Right.
But like I said, it's not the case every single time because reality is there's so many different um, different personalities and different
Exactly.
characteristics, different ways of communicating. With that being said, I do have a question actually because
Mm-hmm.
with strategies on trying to manage upwards, when you talked a little bit about um, understanding like what your manager wants, which kind of relates back to what I mentioned earlier, which is that sometimes there are different personalities with managers.
Right.
How do we actually how do we get to know how our manager is or
Mm.
how they work or what they actually look for?
Mm.
Any suggestions or yeah, any suggestions or strategies on that end from your experience?
Mm. So it's a good question. Thank you, Diana, for that. And I think it all boils down as a fundamental communication.
Right.
Right now, you need to be able to communicate to your supervisors, There are several strategies, and it would be dependent so much on the individuals or the supervisor, how they are managing the situations. So sometimes there are supervisors who would rather have one-on-ones. They are grateful, or they are happy if you come to them with certain tasks that you've done, and sometimes it's not 100% done. They just want that interaction. That could
Mm.
happen also, right? Sometimes there are bosses who would have an arm's length, having that trust with the employee to say that, once I have asked of this task, and I know and I trust that my employee will then be able to deliver. Yeah. So to your question, I would think fundamentally it would be communication and understanding your bosses in how they work,
Mm.
and that's very important. So different people would gravitate towards different kind of ways to manage. You just need to know how to,
Yeah. So
right?
would you then recommend, for example, when you say communication, right?
Mm,
Is it like asking, "Hey, boss, may I know how would you prefer for this to be delivered?"
correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's transparency
Right.
to that effect, right? It's about, if you don't know something,
Mm.
then ask, right?
Mm.
If you are stuck somewhere, then seek for clarification. So
Nice.
it's about that communication, that relationship that you build, and as you grow into this situation, and you've heard of the emotional bank account, right?
Mm-hmm.
EBA.
Okay.
In terms of how do you then build your EBA, your emotional bank account, with your supervisors. So it's built on the trust. It's built on that faith that the supervisors would have on you, and
Mm.
therefore you then be able to build that relationship better.
Awesome. Okay, I hear you. And speaking of trust,
Hmm.
can we talk a little bit more about actually how do we build that sense of trust um, from as an employee's perspective towards my managers? How do
Hmm.
I gain trust from my managers?
Hmm.
Like to either not just to champion, not sorry, to sponsor me, for example, or
Hmm.
to champion me to my sponsors,
Hmm.
or to be someone who will verify or be a credible source to my capacity of my quality of work, for example, or my
Hmm.
performance, right?
Hmm.
How do we, yeah, any ideas on like what we can do, or some practical tips on how we can build that sense of trust with our managers and superiors?
Yeah. So I think one of the main thing for me, as a supervisor, it would be the accountability.
Mm.
And you deliver the things that you're supposed to deliver. You build that trust with your supervisor. So say for example, the a task has been given to you, right? And the deadline has been set, and the deadline has been agreed,
Right.
mutually agreed, right? Now, if you have the accountability, you will then be able to deliver the task within the set deadline.
Mm.
Now, what happens if that trust is broken, for example,
Mm.
and that piece of task that has been done or supposed to be done was not delivered,
Mm.
and therefore the deadline has passed, and yet there's not been any communication around why, around if there were to be a request for extension to that deadline. So
Mm.
nothing was done.
Understand.
So you did not take that responsibility, though the accountability was provided to you, the empowerment was provided to you to deliver the task, yet you have actually broken that
Mm.
trust.
Understand.
Right. So those, some of the things that, as far as supervisor is concerned, that trust may be diminishing,
Right.
right? With these kind of activities that may happen in
Understand.
that relationship.
Yeah, I hear that. And I totally resonate with what you say, because trust is a big thing, right? And it
Mhm.
takes a while, it takes time, it takes a lot of effort and experiences and opportunities to actually build that trust.
Mhm.
And again, whatever I'm hearing you saying about accountability and a sense of responsibility is going back to feeling empowered, to
Mhm.
feeling like actually I do have control, like to do something about this, right?
Mhm.
That, oh, it's like not just like
Let
losing,
go.
letting go, or
Yeah.
losing, like releasing my responsibilities and not taking any sort of accountability, because it makes sense, like in that scenario, you as a manager or as a superior, you are entrusting this task to your subordinate, and you believe that they're able to deliver, and communication has been established, deadlines have been set
Mhm.
and mutually agreed. And when there is no communication, when
Mhm.
things fall apart,
Mhm.
or when issues arise, when it's actually the most important time
Mhm.
to communicate, when we need help, right?
Mhm.
But there is also that sense of, yeah, some barriers I would see,
Mhm.
where sometimes my communication can fall apart, or
Mhm.
there is no sense of accountability to admit, hey, I may have made an error,
Mhm.
and can I communicate to this boss, or to my boss in this case? Oh,
Yeah.
so with that being said, wanted to get pick your brain on what are some things that you can think of, or from your own experience of how that communication actually falls apart. What could have contributed to it, yeah, and what may have caused it in that sense.
Mhm. Yeah. Thank you. So for that, right? There are a few things that could happen. One, then again, is about that lack of trust. We talk about that trust again, right? And sometimes when when you talk about the issues, right? Not being transparent with your bosses. Sometimes when you have something that you do not know, but then you do not approach your boss, you procrastinate in doing so, and when it comes to the crust of it, and when it comes to the delivery of the thing, and it's not done, then that trust will then crumble, um, organically, in that sense, right?
Mm.
Now, and once that trust is broken, Diana, it will be an uphill battle,
Yeah.
to gain back the emotional bank account, as we say just
Mm.
now. So before you get into that rut, before you fall into that spiral, this communication, as well as being transparent with your supervisors, would be something key to ensure that this kind of relationship will be sustainable in the long run
I hear
for the
you.
employees.
I understand.
Yeah.
And as you said that, it kind of reminded me of the fact that when we talk about once the trust is broken, right,
Mhm.
that it's quite an uphill battle to gain it back.
To redeem yourself
Yeah.
in the eyes of the supervisor.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I sense that could be the blocker,
Mm.
actually, um because of how it may be difficult, right? I was like, oh, I want to avoid as much as possible to not lose the trust of my boss or my
Mm.
superior, whoever you're having the trust with, right? Um, with that being said, a sense of avoidance for it can also push you to, for example, not communicate, right?
Mm.
Because of this sense of I cannot fail,
Mm.
because I cannot lose this trust,
Mm.
right? So, however, part of it is actually to know that repair is possible,
Right.
right? That's what I think. Um, a lot of the times there is this perspective um, of I can't make mistakes,
Mm.
I can't fail, or I can't ask for help, because then that would make me lose my credibility, or make my superior look down on me, or look
Mm.
less of me, right? But in fact, it could be the complete opposite. When you stay quiet and you don't reach out and
Mm.
things crumble anyways,
Mm.
that would then make it a little bit more worse, right? A bit
Correct.
more impact. The impact is higher, right? So a big point is actually to have a sense of trust towards also your
Mm.
superior, that I
Mm.
can communicate, and that my superior is able to help, for
Mm.
example, or to is able to receive it, or is able to support me through it.
Mm.
Because nobody is 100% all the time.
Right.
We do need support sometimes,
Right.
and that impact of, I guess, losing trust is
Mm.
less severe than, for example, not being accountable or not communicating
Mm.
that you need support and that you need help, right?
Mm.
And then completely crumbling, and then your boss is blindsided and being like, hey, what happened here?
Correct.
How come you didn't tell me? Versus in a scenario,
Mm-hmm.
hey boss, I can't reach this deadline. I need help in reprioritizing my tasks.
Mm.
I need more support. I need more time. And then facing a little bit of maybe the brunt of it, maybe understandably so,
Mm-hmm.
but the impact won't be as severe
Right.
as, for example, not being accountable, not communicating at all,
Right.
ghosting, and
Yeah.
all sorts of miscommunications,
Mm.
miscommunication styles, which
Mm.
is like basically ghosting or
Mm.
freezing or running away from it lah, or
Mm.
avoiding it completely,
Yeah.
right?
So now I want to pick your brain in that sense, right? Now you spoke about having this perhaps is self-sabotaging
Mm.
when you feel as though you need to do your best and you cannot fail, right? Now,
Yes.
and that I believe it's mindset,
Yes.
right? Now, as a mental health expert in this sense, right? Now, how do you think we can help the audience to understand how do we change or control this mindset
Mm.
to not fall into that space, because it's going to be a very vicious cycle when you keep on having this, self-sabotaging mindset, right?
Yeah.
But how do you then be able to help that? How do you change your mindset? What are amongst the things? So many questions, so sorry.
It's okay. I love the questions, and I think it will benefit the audience. I
Sure.
love it. Thank you so much for the questions. And yeah, it's a really great question because I do see that pattern each time, and it actually does pushes people to burnout because
Mm,
of a lot of times it's a lot about mindset, right?
mm,
My boss is not supportive. I don't have a team. I don't have support.
right.
I have no career growth here. It's a
Yes.
lot of mentality about feeling helpless, feeling
Mm,
hopeless, and not feeling empowered, right?
mm,
So yes, a lot of times it does come from our own mindsets and a perspective that can just not impact our work, but also our personal life and our overall life, right?
correct.
And the way we think does matter. So
Mm,
a way to kind of manage that, or to manage that a little bit better, first things first is always about awareness,
ah,
building a sense of awareness of,
that's
are
right.
you in a self-sabotaging cycle? Are
Right.
you putting yourself in a self-sabotaging cycle? Because sometimes there is low awareness, or we're
Mm,
not aware of the kind of mindsets we've put ourselves in,
right.
and how it actually impacts us.
Right.
For example, are you aware that each time you go into a one-on-one with your boss, you may or may not be aware that you might have a certain bias of how your boss will be.
Mm,
Like, oh, okay, my boss doesn't like me, my superior is not supportive of me. So
mm,
when you go into the one-on-one, or the check-in with your boss, you might be reserved, you might
mm,
not share as much.
mm,
Or for example, if you have a mindset, I don't trust my boss is not trustworthy, when your boss puts in effort to actually get to know you or to
mm,
ask you questions, but you answer very, very surface level.
mm,
There is a block, an emotional
right.
block to connect with you.
Right.
You know, because of that mindset, because of
Right.
that bias of, I can't trust my boss. My
Mm,
boss doesn't care about me. My boss doesn't have my back, and so forth. So that mindset can, and especially when you're not conscious of it, when it's
mm,
automatic, it can greatly affect a
mm,
lot of these subtle actions or behaviors
mm,
we have, right? So number one is to start to be aware,
mm,
and it can just be noticing, like, what do you feel? Ask yourself, how am I feeling when I'm seeing my boss? Or how am I feeling when I'm going to work? Or how am I feeling after this one-to-one? What did I say? How did I behave? How was my physical or emotional demeanor, like my body language? Am I open or am I reserved? Or am I tense or am I distrusting? And all of that shows, right? Do you feel a sense of openness to want to listen, to want to trust? Or is it close to be like, I'm not even trying to look at you. I'm just here to finish this one-on-one because it's part of my KPI, right? So awareness is number one, right? And once you're aware, hopefully, and you see, the next part is the action part, which is that you ask yourself, how helpful is this? Is it actually helping you to achieve what you want, the goals that you want? And that is essentially trying to identify what is your motivation. In this case, internal motivation, right? What are you, is this way of thinking and how it can actually influence the way you behave, actually pushing you or pivoting you to the direction of goals that you want, right? And if you come to a place and you're like, oh no, it's not, what is a perspective that you want to take? So when you identify what is the unhelpful way to think, what's a more balanced refrain? Is it really true that my boss doesn't care about me, or my boss hates me, right? What's a different refrain? What's a different perspective? And if you find that difficult, you can do it from a third person perspective. For example, how would a friend try to help me reframe a negative thought about it? Like, for example, oh no, Fazi, it's not that your boss doesn't like you. Have you actually given a shot? For example, to try to build that sense of comfort. How do you feel actually with your boss? Actually reflecting a lot on yourself, right? And seeing your sense of control within that scenario, and also part of like what you said, learning a little bit about your boss and your manager, like what how they are, because there are so many different personalities and characteristics. So part of it is to be more a bit more flexible, and to be, in a sense, agile, emotionally, mentally, and again, like this is to build that sense of relational currency. So if you're looking for that intrinsic motivation, or going back to always your social currency, right? To in the end, to advocate, to build yourself up, to manage up and get what you want, right? In the end of the day. So and that's fine too, right? Because in the end, we want to feel a sense of fulfillment, and one of the ways through to get that sense of fulfillment, although not entirely just in work, but it is one of the things that we do feel fulfilled. But yes, thank you for the question. I hope that answers it.
Yeah, but I wanted to get into that awareness space, right? Because I think in my line as an executive coach, I always also sometimes go through some of the conversations around, some people would have this sabotaging themselves, and I would always request for them to have this awareness, right? Now, very interested in understanding that perspective from you, because I understand being aware. Sometimes when you mention about these things that are happening to you, the first thing is to make sure that you are aware, right? But then I would think, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that that being aware needs to be something which is always there with you, right? You need to catch yourself when you are spiraling, for example. When you are going into that space, you need to catch yourself, and then you need to then be able to get out from that. Now, is that the correct exercise, you think?
Exactly.
All
So
right.
you're catching yourself that you're spiraling, and there are many ways for you to kind of bring yourself out of that spiral. So either you can do a grounding technique, so using your five senses to remind you you're in your present moment, because most of the time with spiraling, you're kind of lost in the future, or you're kind of floating away from present reality.
That's right.
So part of actually bringing yourself back here is through, you can do a grounding exercise, you can do a breathing exercise, you can even have notice yourself and ask yourself again, how helpful actually is this line of thoughts that I'm having, that I'm spiraling to the point of a possible future that may or may not actually happen.
Right.
So, and if you notice, okay, yeah, it's not that helpful. Let me bring myself back to here. What can I actually do about it? And then being grounded with a sense of empowerment and a sense of control again, rather than
Fantastic.
losing that sense of control when you're spiraling. Because
Right.
spiraling usually is a sense of, I'm losing control. I'm so scared. What am I gonna do? I feel
Correct.
anxious, and then feeling stuck in there. But then it's bringing you back to the present. Oh, you do have control here. You can do something about it within your capacity, within your boundaries, and what can I do that can fulfill me, or that can help me in that sense. So yes, that's actually what you can do like when you're spiraling.
Fantastic. Oh,
Yeah,
I know that is a very good tip with the next time I speak with my coaches, and I can help them with that technique too.
that's awesome. I'm glad to be helpful. So with that being said,
Right.
just to kind of slowly um, slowly, I guess, conclude or close our session for today, I wanted to ask, do you have any sort of final tips
Right.
to our audience with regarding to them trying to manage up to their managers or their superiors?
Right. We've spoken quite a bit, about some of the techniques that we use. What are the benefits of managing upwards in that sense? But I would want to leave the audience with just one word: empowerment. And I would like, to perhaps emphasize a little bit more about empowering yourself, taking charge of your career. And there are many strategies around how do you propel, or how do you prepare your career. But one of the things is about managing up in this sense, right?
Yeah.
But remember that you are in the driver's seat. You are in control. So therefore, some of the things that you learn, or you hear, or you know today, it's about managing that yourself. So empower yourself. Your career is in your hands. Go get
Wow,
it.
that's amazing. Thank you for that. I feel empowered. And I agree. I would say, definitely the final tip is to be empowered, to take a sense of control in your career. And yeah, I definitely felt that message,
Mhm.
to hopefully with the audience as well, to feel a sense of, oh, I can do something about achieving what I want,
Correct.
and this is one of the ways to do it, right? Okay,
Fantastic.
that's great. Okay, with that being said,
Yeah.
I wanted to share a little bit about some of the resources we have from Naluri, right? So,
Mm.
in conjunction to World Mental Health Day and actually World Mental Health Month in October,
Mhm.
we have a free Naluri emotional well-being assessment.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's a 7 question, really quickly, just so if you are curious about your current well-being,
Mhm.
how your emotions are, this is a great way to get started. So it's free. You can just scan the QR code and
Mm.
take the time to just see, to just assess. And this is actually one of the ways to build awareness
Mm.
regarding yourself and your body and your emotions and your thoughts, to actually use a tool, for example, an assessment tool, to see and get some objective answers and results in how your current well-being is. So yes, feel free to scan the QR code and to try it out. We would really appreciate. And again, your results are all 100% anonymous, okay? And everyone can answer,
Mm.
and everyone can use it. You can share it to your friends and your family that you
Mm.
find, oh, this might be helpful for them. Okay, and besides that, we also have in Naluri, we have one-to-one Naluri consultations. So either, for example, if you need more personalized support, more individualized support, closer support, you can either book a session, for example, like Fazi here, with an executive coach. If you want to know how to have a more personal guideline or support in terms of your career development, or even, for example, with myself, if you are looking for more on mental health or personal development or relationships or anything that's related to your emotional well-being or building on that emotional intelligence and regulation as well.
Yes.
Okay, so yes, you can also scan to book as well. And then we also have free 24 hours Naluri care lines and text lines. So this is accessible for anyone in any case of any crisis. If you need support when you're having an
Mhm.
anxiety attack, a panic attack, or if you're in crisis and you need support, you can text them or you can call these hotlines according to the arrange country codes there. And it's great because it's meant by professional counselors here in
Fantastic.
Naluri. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So they're trained and
Mm.
they will know what to do to support you in the crisis. So I think
Mm.
it's amazing.
It
So
is. It is. Sometimes you'll never know when you are in a situation whereby you need support,
yeah,
and you may not have people around you to be able to do that. And this support that we have is, it's anonymous, as you said.
yep,
It's very confidential, right?
yep,
And it's somebody that you are able, and it's professional. Yeah,
yes,
we are all professional.
yep.
Uh,
They've been
uh,
through
si-
trainings. Yep,
Correct. Yeah.
exactly. So and it's free. And again, like you said, it's anonymous.
Mm.
And yes, I believe that would be one more thing, which is our Naluri app and web. So if you are interested, you can scan the QR code to explore more about our app. The Naluri app that has a bunch of things. It has the assessments. You can chat with the coaches. They are real life coaches. They're not
Yes.
AIs.
Yes.
There are people like Fazi herself and myself who are on the app. So if you have any more questions regarding our session today and you didn't get to or we didn't get to cover them, you can always chat with them on the Naluri app
Yes.
as well. And yes, if you would like to know more about any sort of engagement or events happening with Naluri, you can definitely stay connected through either Facebook or Instagram, and you can get more information and yeah, stay updated with us. So
Yes.
yes, now we are going to our Q&A portion.
Right.
Let me take a look through in the meantime.
Any interesting ones?
Yes, hold on. We're going to take a moment. Oh, yes, you can ask the questions right now, by the way. We'll take the time for you to guys, for the audience to ask us questions. Okay, we have a question.
Sure.
Can you briefly explain high functioning individuals that despite their mental health struggles, they can still perform at work? And how do we create a healthy work environment for these individuals? So, high functioning individuals. So, I'm assuming those who have mental health struggles.
Mm-hmm.
So, this individual wants to understand how how they can still perform at work
Mm-hmm.
despite their struggles and um, how do we create a healthy environment. So maybe I can share a little bit
Sure. Sure.
what how they're performing.
Mm.
I believe they're managing their symptoms well, so that's a huge thing. We want to
Mm-hmm.
not stigmatize those with mental health struggles, to say like, oh, just because you have mental health struggles that means you're not able to perform or you can't thrive. That's not true. It's so very possible for those who have mental health struggles to actually be great performers.
Right.
So how they actually do it will be best to ask them what are their personal tips on how they actually are doing such a good job. But I believe a big part of it is they're managing their symptoms well, they understand their symptoms well, they understand themselves well,
Mm-hmm.
and also probably they're able to get a very strong support system,
Mm-hmm.
and they're also able to manage their work well as well.
Yeah.
So I believe that's how one of the three things that I can think about.
Yeah. And
um
I think to that note, you mentioned about stigmatized, right?
mm-mm,
And sometimes, they acknowledge that they have got issues, they've got challenges. However, because of, the environment, because of the peers, or colleagues for that matter, they may not reach out and, ask for help. So I think acknowledging is important in this case, right? But also reach out for help if there were to be a need to do so.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And to add on to that, to answer your second question, which is how do we actually create a healthy work environment,
Mhm.
right? And a big thing I would say is psychological safety.
That's right. That's a
Yeah.
good word.
So
Yes.
it's the concept or it's the idea, oh no, it's a practice. I want to say practice that we create a sense of safety to be, um, however, the emotions or psychological state we are,
Yes.
that we can have safe conversations about our struggles,
Right.
especially mental health struggles, and that we are practicing empathy,
Mm-hmm.
and as well as listening, right?
Mm.
Listening to people's struggles and not quickly jumping to conclusions or judging them,
Mm.
right? And not shaming or guilt tripping them as well. So it's
Yes.
that sense of psychological safety. I feel it's so
Correct.
so imperative, and not just for individuals who are struggling. It can be just for anyone, because I believe a sense of psychological safety is a
Mm-hmm.
way to prevent from uh, from anyone from who's probably healthy and becoming to struggling or
Mm.
having more issues. It's a way to prevent, and it's a way to, to keep everything safe lah, to
Mm.
as a preventative strategy rather than only implementing it when the struggle is there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on that note, it's also on the employer side or the organization side, the fundamental duty of care
Mm,
to be able to have this environment which is safe, as what you said, right? So it is a duty of care that the organizations need to have to make sure that the employees are in a safe environment, as what you have just described just now, Diana.
I love that accountability. Okay. Um, right. In the meantime, if you have any sort of feedback about our session today, about our webinar, please feel free to give feedback. We would really appreciate it, because feedback is a great way for us to improve or to
Yes.
continue things that we've done well.
Yes.
So, yes, thank you so, so much for being here today, for listening to us, and for your interactivity and your questions. We really appreciate them. And thank you. Have a great, awesome day, and happy World Mental Health Day. Again,
Take care.
take care. Bye bye.